This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Welcome to the Thoughtful Travellers Book Club as we talk about Bewildered by Laura Waters with Laura Waters. It's very exciting for our first book club to actually have the author with us. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. And welcome back, Justin.
Me with reading my book. Thank you.
Oh, well, no. I mean, I know that I enjoyed it. Actually, I haven't asked Justin, but I'm pretty sure he also enjoyed it.
In fact, yes, of course. I loved it.
I mean, I think you did already tell me that. Of course you're going to say that. But no, I really did love it. And I know I've had lots of good feedback already from some of the readers in the Thoughtful Travellers group. So it's exciting to be able to talk to you about it. But anyway, it's also welcome back, Justin, my excellent co-host. Thank you again for joining us for Book Club. So we are talking about this awesome book, and you can see there Laura is taking it very seriously by being back out there in the wild for this episode.
I assume that's Laura on the cover, or at least I hope so.
That's actually a selfie, believe it or not. I am the master of balancing a camera, walking away, and then walking back again. I don't know how many times I've done it.
That is super impressive. It never occurred to me. I just assumed someone else took it. How cool.
The marker poles in New Zealand are just at the perfect height to balance your camera on. So, yeah.
That's a very awesome little piece of information that I didn't know. So
I get very disappointed in Australia. Often the marker poles have got like a slanted top on them and you can't balance your camera.
Yes.
It's
not very thoughtful, is it?
No, it's not.
I mean, really, they should also have like those, grippy things that to fit your phone in and stuff like that on those marker poles.
Yes, they should.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe someone can invent that. Steal that idea. I'm not ready to go into products. Anyone, you can take it. So, and hello everyone who's joining us. We've got quite a few watchers today, and Pam has already chimed in to say loved it. I'm not surprised, Pam. Pam is a good friend of mine and one of those crazy people who decided, after never having hiked or done anything particularly physical, to go to trek to Everest Base Camp for her 60th birthday. And she's been back again since, so she's completely nuts. So I'm not surprised at all to hear that she loved Bewildered. So
go, Pam.
Yeah, she's awesome. All right, so let us begin. Justin and I have a bunch of topics and questions as always, and we get to not chat about them amongst ourselves. We get to ask the real source today. So our first topic is about travelling with other people. So Laura, of course, you set off, well, initially to travel with a friend, but that only lasted like a day or two, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 24 hours, yeah.
Yeah, so that was
even quite 24 hours, actually. Yeah.
That was pretty traumatic.
I pretty much worked it out from the first page, actually.
Yeah.
I thought this friend's not going to last very long.
No, she wasn't quite as committed as you to start with.
No, look, I think she wasn't really in the right headspace to begin with. But, I'm just grateful that she got me to the start line, because if she hadn't agreed to come with me, I probably wouldn't have tried. So, and it would have been a very different trip if there was two of us. I had some healing to do, and it was best for me in the end to just do that process on my own.
Yeah, things tend to work out the way they need to work out. Notes. Yeah, I think I
mentioned something briefly on that about her Belle's job was kind of to get Laura on the walk, and once she was there, I didn't feel like you really needed her. Sometimes you just need that person to help you get over the line and get started. So
yeah, I mean, it was scary at the time, but there's a lot of fear is just in the head, really, and once you actually start on the process, the reality is often not as bad as you imagine it to be.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So you were traveling solo, but on the way you met a lot of different, quite a number of different other hikers.
Yeah.
And I suppose part of it is you've probably got a fair bit in common to start with. Otherwise you wouldn't be out there walking the length of New Zealand. It's not something that just anybody does. So I guess there's a good chance that you're going to get along with them. But I really liked, Justin, that was yours. The first one I've got about not knowing what people are like when you first meet them. Everyone has a story. You can never tell from just looking at them exactly what it is, but it's there all the same.
Yeah, I think, that trail just brings people from all around the world together. And, as you said, we've got hiking in common, but really that's where it ends. There was people who worked in finance and people who worked at organic farms and teachers, and, we all have different stories, but, going much deeper than that, everybody's got their own personal story, which sometimes even the people immediately around you aren't aware of. Friends and family might not be aware of the deeper story within us sometimes. But I think when you're on the trail and everything else is stripped away and you've got nothing except the people who are around you and you're walking with them for hours on end, things get pretty deep pretty quick.
Oh,
I like that.
I bet.
I think from when I read that, I was thinking the trail, to commit to something that's going to take you several months, that's going to have to bring out a certain person or certain situations in their life that they're either they don't like what they've got at home, or they're just out and adventuring, or something's going to bring them to that trail. Whereas if you meet someone in Bangkok somewhere, or somewhere on the more well-trodden tourist trail, and New Zealand's very popular, I just imagine that walk doesn't have millions of people on it every year. So
it certainly
you're going to meet some people with some interesting stories.
Yeah, it certainly didn't have many people on it when I started doing the walk. Like, I was doing it in its second year of operation, and I think maybe like 50 people had done it before our season. So there wasn't a lot of people out there. Everybody's got different paths, and it brings together hikers. But there's, some people are looking to escape from something, and other people, just as I became at the end of it, just become addicted to the lifestyle of long distance hiking. It's such a freeing sensation that I think once you've done it, you just keep trying to do it. It's a great space to live in. Not everybody was looking to escape. I was. And a couple of others were, but some people just love the experience of long-distance hiking.
It may not even be just an escape. It might be just they need to change they need that some kind of an abrupt, they're in a job, they don't want to keep working at a job. I'm going to go to New Zealand and hike this trail, and then when I get back, I'm going to sort out what job I want to do. And it's not anything over the top, but it's just a break. It's just a clear line that allows someone to draw a line on their life and say, I want to change all these things, but I'll go do this walk, and then when I get back, I'll deal with it.
Absolutely.
That's what it seems.
Yeah.
It does have that effect. I actually had a girlfriend who just went on her first multi-day hike on her own. I think it was only 3 days, but she came out of that with such clarity as well on some, personal issues that she was dealing with. I think when you just strip everything away, all of your energy and attention is focused into what you're doing and to your own story, and you're not being influenced by family and friends and messages that you get from society and advertising. All of that stripped away. So it's just you, and your inner voice gets louder in that period. And I think that's where the magic happens, really.
Yeah,
There's nothing
it's very
to distract
powerful,
you.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I often find those, like, I think what you described, Justin, I think of it as like a life reset, and I think I often find that happens with travel anyway, with many different kinds of travel. But I think something like that, where it's physical and quite focused and really stripped away from the rest of the world, then obviously that's like in overdrive. Pam also mentioned that she said, I think some of us also need to prove something to ourselves. So Pam is kill our own doubts, she says. So I know Pam is the queen of proving things to herself. She, I don't know what age she was, but she went back to study just to get a degree. But she didn't just get a degree; she ended up going all the way and getting a PhD. So she's the queen of definitely, proving things. Yeah. So she's awesome. And
I imagine there's people who do this walk to prove that they can do it, and that's all they want to do it for. I did the Tongariro crossing a couple of years ago, and that's my 20 kilometres of the walk, and I was happy with that. And it was absolutely stunning and beautiful. It was a hard walk, and just for a day, but you do it, you feel the sense of accomplishment. So I imagine doing something even longer is just another out of this world sort of
Full.
sense of accomplishment.
I would imagine you'd need a pretty strong reason to keep doing it for 5 months or 3,000 kilometres, you know. I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of people who started out and they pulled out in the first week. And I think if you pull out after, you know, a couple of days of rain or a couple of days of soft sand, you didn't have enough motivation to start with to propel you through it. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you could sustain 5 months of, intense hiking just to say, I've achieved that. But I don't know.
Well, it's very life interrupting too, isn't it? Because of the length of time. So it's not just, you know, you can't do it in your annual leave or whatever. Yeah, you've had to make a real commitment to unless, you know, if you're just, I don't know, a teenager wandering the world or something, you know.
Well, I know there's people who try and do speed records on the TA, and that's probably just, you know, to say.
What's the speed record? How far?
Look, I'd be guessing now, but geez, what's the quickest I've heard? It might be something like between 30 and 60 days. I'm obviously going to be way out, but a lot quicker than what I did. That's running, you know, running with a support crew and
that doesn't sound fun to me.
Well, not to me, but see, that's talking about the differences of what your goals are. If your goal is to say I did it the fastest or whatever, then great, that's your goal.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, if we learned anything from last year, 2020, there's a lot of people who can't be by themselves for more than a couple of days before they go a bit crazy. So I think you probably need to be happy with your own company for a few days at least on the trail. I'm sure you'll meet people, but I think you probably need to prepare.
But, you know, I had this little realisation, well, a friend that I was hiking with, he pointed it out to me that when I said, you know, I'm walking alone, oh my God, I'm walking alone. And he said, no, you're not alone. You've got nature with you. And I felt at that point, I was like, yeah, of course. I never feel alone when I'm in nature, you know, because I feel connected to something far bigger than me. I don't feel lonely when I'm walking alone.
No. That's awesome. On that note, before we leave the topic of people, I just have to mention the part very early on when you're walking on the beach and the people come up or a guy or something comes up in the car and gives you chocolate biscuits.
Yeah.
I just love that bit because we often talk about the kindness of strangers and, you know, kind of cross-reference that to the stranger danger idea we all were brought up with, and you've got to be wary of strangers. And I think at that moment you were a bit wary, and then what were they doing? They actually just were offering you chocolate biscuits. I just thought that's just a lovely moment.
Yeah, you know, when you're out in the middle of nowhere on your own, you know, like you say, we're just primed to be looking for danger and, you know, being on your guard. And
I would have been too.
Nice to be, you know, proven wrong and someone just wants to help you.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
And it's so common, like in the stories that travellers tell me, is that, you know, they're in these situations and they think, oh, what's going on? And it just turns out. So, you know, nearly 99.9% of the time, people are kind and lovely, so so that's good. Now, we've kind of touched on this already, but my next topic there is doing hard things. So fairly early on in the book, you write this: I don't for one moment consider giving up, but it does cross my mind that I might have a miserable 5 months ahead of me. What made you go on, despite thinking it could be miserable?
I guess because my motivation, I'd always wanted to, you know, for years, I hadn't consciously thought about it, but I just was thinking there's got to be more to life than this, and I'm capable of more than this, and I want to push myself and see what I'm capable of. So when, you know, I expected hardship. I didn't expect it was going to be easy. So, you know, when the pain came, giving up was just not even on the radar. I didn't think to myself, I'm not going to give up. Like, it just wasn't even on the radar. I knew I was going to, bar some terrible injury, I was going to walk to the finish. So that was my goal, and that's what I was going to do.
Did you think that right from the beginning? Like, because you had that moment with Belle leaving you and you walked the beach, and it seemed to me in the book, once you walked the beach, you probably at that point were willing to go ahead by yourself, but I think you were still maybe hoping Belle was going to join you at that point. But
yeah, I was hoping, but I mean, if you think of the months of preparation that I'd done to get to that point, I didn't want to throw it all away. I was there. I might as well just keep going, you know. And also I knew that things weren't that great back at home either. You know, I'd just left a pretty overwhelming, you know, life in the city, lots of noise and anxiety, and I needed that. I needed to get away and just push on through and keep walking. So I was just going to give it a go and see how far I could get.
Yeah, I guess that helps that the option of going home didn't feel like a great option at that time. Yeah. I just have a couple of questions from the group before we move on. Well, a comment from Joan. Joan's in the UK. She says, I liked how honest you were about wanting company and being prepared to trust them rather than yourself, which I think you'd mentioned somewhere, Justin, as well. And yet when you did walk solo, you loved it. So great combo.
I mean, I didn't trust myself to start with, it's so rare that we get to test ourselves and just think, I'm making a decision here in my life. What am I going to choose to do? It's so rare that comes up. But when you're on the trail, you sort of have to do that. And the more challenges that we face and overcome, the more confidence you get and the more you get to tune into your intuition. It's a good thing to push on.
Kind of related, Ina, who's in Norway, asks, how did you choose your goals and places and so on? I think, how did you, from a daily basis, how did you decide, okay, this is how far we're going? Or, how did you kind of really plan out those daily or monthly kind of goals and stuff?
A lot of it was sort of dictated by the trail itself. So particularly in the South Island. In the North Island, there's a lot of, you're staying in tents most of the time. And in the South Island, there's a lot of huts. So you are trying to get to the next hut because it's super exposed and possibly dangerous if you don't get to the next hut. But it's more, so when I was camping in the north, sometimes you don't know where you're going to camp at the end of the day. And there's no river or anywhere that's obvious. So you just walk as far as you can. And then when there's a flat bit of land on the ground, then that's where you put your tent up. And I put my tent up in the middle of a track sometimes because that's the best option you've got. But normally it's dictated by trying to find water, pretty much water and flat ground, really. So you can sort of tell from the maps and the trail notes what's ahead. And from other hikers who'd gone before me, I knew roughly how many days there was going to be in each section between resupply points. So, on average, the trail goes through or near a town once a week, say, sometimes 3 days, sometimes I think the longest stretch was 9 days I had to carry food for. But you've got a rough idea what you're aiming for, and then it just comes down to weather and, whether you're feeling strong and fit that you can come to where you plan to get to. But that all went out the window when I was on the beach. The first 100 kilometres of sand, there is nothing to tell you where to camp. And that was a really surreal experience because it's like you just imagine you've got this super long beach, the horizon is infinity. When you just stop and say, this is it, I'm planting my flag and this is where I'm camping. That was a really interesting but really freeing experience as well. No rules.
Yeah, no rules is hard.
No rules is great. I love no rules.
I think I do, but I don't know. I'm not sure I'm cut out for this kind of adventure, let's put it that way.
It's scary at first, but then you get a little bit, bit high on the euphoria of no rules. Yeah, I like it.
Maybe I can after all. I'm not convinced. Justin, did you have anything else on this hard things topic, doing tough stuff?
I think I know I put in something about which we've already touched on with going on without Belle and stuff like that. And I think it's just some people want to challenge themselves and others don't. And I think how you challenge yourself can be vastly different from people to people. But I think as people who enjoy travelling and in Laura's case, walking for months on end, you want to do those things because they are hard, but you're doing them. There's obviously that sense of accomplishment or the sense of getting something out of it, which may be getting your head in a better space, because you've gone through some kind of mental health issues. So you're going to use it to get your head in a better space, and that's what you're getting out of it. That's your accomplishment by doing it. Just happens to be challenging at the same time. So you're kind of thinking of, oh, gee, where am I camping tonight? Or, how much longer up this hill? I can't see the top of the hill. You're thinking of that and being mindful of everything rather than being loathing of, don't want to do this. Why is that bad? Why is that bad? So, that's right. And that's what I found. Even just doing a bushwalk, it's amazing for that kind of stuff. So
makes you really present and in the moment, because you're so busy focusing on where's the trail. You know, for me too, when I was suffering anxiety before the hike, my breathing was shocking. But when you're busting a gut climbing up a hill, you've got to breathe.
So, your body makes you.
You're just really living in the moment.
Oh, that's perfect segue into the topic, because I want to talk a bit more about like dealing with your emotions and the conquering the anxiety part of the story, of your story, and finding happiness. So my perspective is interesting, because I don't know if it's interesting. It's interesting to me. We've talked about anxiety quite a few times on the Thoughtful Travel podcast. And so my story is that I had really bad anxiety in my 20s. And when I moved abroad, it almost disappeared completely. Like it's as though being away from all the triggers cured it, quote unquote. What really surprised me in your story, Laura, is that it kept coming back even while you were out there on the trail. Like, I felt anxious for you through it, thinking, oh my God, she feels awful again, despite all of this, kind of experience and I don't know, quote unquote, breakthroughs along the way. But one thing you wrote about dealing with the anxiety of, I suppose, the unknown stuff is when you said the unknown becoming known. So you're anxious also or worried along the way about the trail and about, like especially the difficult parts and how you would get through that. So quite apart from the anxiety of stuff back home. But I liked how you described it as the unknown becoming known. And often people will have like pre-trip anxiety or worries about things when they're traveling, which I think is a good thing. I think it means that you're pushing your comfort zone. So that's kind of a good thing. But I really like that phrase, the unknown becoming known. And then all of that kind of anxiety can disappear. But sorry, that's a really rambling introduction to say, tell us some more about the anxiety and how that was dealt with by walking from end to end of New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, you say it came back, but to be honest, I was really surprised and relieved that it pretty much went away within 3 or 4 weeks, I guess. After suffering pretty awfully in Melbourne before I left, not being able to breathe, just my skin hurt. Everything was just flinching at the noises and stimulation around me. I couldn't think. It was pretty awful. And then I got on the trail, and within 3 or 4 weeks, it was gone. And yes, I still had worry. I was worried about stuff, but that's different to that sort of blind anxiety just through your body for no good reason.
Right.
I would be like, oh, where am I going to hike tonight? And will I be walking alone? But I wasn't going, I can't breathe. It was a different thing. The only time that kind of anxiety came back again is middle of the South Island, when I was lost the company of a few hiking buddies I've been with for some time, and I was just about to go into a really, one of the trickiest sections of the whole trail with like 50 unbridged river crossings and chest-high tussock grass and no trail on the ground to follow. Then I got plunged back into it. And also as I grew closer to the end of the trail and I started to think about how I was going to be returning to my old life, basically, unless I came up with a brilliant plan, which came much later. That's when it came back, and I was like, oh my God, why is this anxiety coming back? And that's when I had a little breakthrough, a little epiphany in a hut one night, and realized that I was just living incongruently with who I was, and I didn't want to go back to my life in the city, a corporate job, working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That wasn't the life for me. And once I sort of made a little pact with myself that I was going to, listen to myself and what I wanted and make changes, then that anxiety just melted away. I'm not an anxiety expert, but I can say for me, I only ever feel anxious now if there's a problem I'm not listening to. And as soon as I, feel any of those sensations and I say to myself, it's okay, we're gonna fix this, then I can feel my body just melt away and, we're back in control again. Because, sometimes we get stuck in situations we don't like and it causes us stress, and it's often all too easy to think we've got no control over it, but often we've got a lot more control than we think. So now I just try and live that way and make changes in my life if I'm not happy with something.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's a rambling answer to your rambling question.
Yeah, it's perfect. I love a good ramble, and it's perfect. So, Justin, anything to add?
I just had the comment on Laura made a comment in a book about letting go of anger.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's something I've tried to do, and I don't feel like now I'm ever angry. I just kind of like, if someone does make me angry, I can just let it go, because I've never found it ever has any benefit to being angry. I mean, you can get angry with someone and it usually just makes the situation even worse. So it's kind of like the whole anxiety thing. You've kind of got to not bury it, but you want to think about, why am I angry and how can we stop this from happening again and things like that. So it was just this whole, I can never see anger ever being useful. It seems like, Laura, you kind of felt that way as well, as you like getting angry with people in the past, and that was not going to do you any good.
That doesn't help, no. I think, on the whole, yes, you don't want to be holding on to anger. But, I mean, it maybe in small doses it can be useful, can galvanize you to resolve yourself to do something or to make change in your life. Just brief moments, though. It's not something you want to hang on to or live in that space. It's not helpful, and I don't think it's good for us. Even if you're not overtly angry, I feel like it sort of rots your insides a little bit. It's not good for the body. It's something I still work at. I think now, I came off the trail 6 years ago, a total, in a bliss ball. And when you're immersed back in life and you've got stresses again and you've got pressures, it's easy to get in that frustrated space again. I guess it just takes mindfulness to try and avoid it, at least.
I like to always try and remind people that mental health, for example, is not like your physical health, where you can take a drug to help your physical health, or you can go get, if you've broken your leg, you can get it fixed. Mental health, it's something that's got to you're always kind of working on it. It's not something that's...
It's not a one-off thing. It's an ongoing...
No, I've never met anyone who's had...
your general health too, yeah.
I've never met anyone who's had mental health issues that all of a sudden says, oh, no, I never have any issues anymore. It's like, oh, no, it's something I'm always aware of. I know how to try and deal with it, but, it's not just going to suddenly flick a light switch and it's never going to happen to me ever again, or have that.
No, I agree. It's always something you've got to pay attention to and look after yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
agreed.
That's very true. I just want to jump in and just ask if anyone who is watching has any questions. Now's the time to pop them in the chat so that we can ask them, because we're nearing the end, but we've got another couple of bits I want to ask Laura about. But everyone who's watching, thank you for coming, and pop questions in if you've got any. I want to talk just about getting back from the walk. So you've been out there for 5 months. That's a good chunk of time. And it seems to me it's a bit like reverse culture shock, which I've talked about a lot. When I lived overseas and came back to Perth, I had rotten reverse culture shock. I found it really hard to fit back into life here in Perth. So, I was used to living in, different places, speaking different languages, having lots of different input. And then I was back in, where I'd left. And, that was really hard. And I imagine that, in a sense, coming back from the trail is a bit like reverse culture shock. Do you think?
Oh, it was huge. Absolutely huge. I mean, obviously, as a writer, in my book, my job is to try and let you get into my head and know what it felt like. But I still cannot capture the scale of the change within me and how euphoric I felt doing that walk. It was just... New Zealand just felt like this wonderful, magical land of Oz kind of thing. And I did not want to come back at all, and then I come back to Melbourne and go back to my old job, because I only had long service leave to do it. So I'm back in the city, back in those uncomfortable old clothes again, back renting a room in a city, and I did not want to be there at all. But it probably took maybe, I think, 4 months before I quit. I think, it's what has been seen cannot be unseen. And I had a glimpse of what I after that trip. I knew what happiness felt like. I knew what being me felt like. And when you've got that reference point, it's easier to find your way back there. You know, if you don't even know that place exists, you're going to have a hard time living there. But if you at least know what that feels like and what you're chasing, then, you know, you can get on the path that leads you there. And so that's where I was at the end of that trip. Everyone, you know, friends would send me messages, oh, how are you going to, you know, assimilate back into your old life? And I thought, I don't want to. I can't. I can't pretend anymore. So, yeah.
I know, that makes absolute perfect sense. I relate very strongly to that.
It seemed crazy that I was going to give up that safe job to go and write a book and, like, not earn any money for 12 months, you know, like, am I out of my mind? And then I quit, and within a few weeks I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it took me so long to do this. You know, it's just
no regrets, obviously.
No, but you have to get out of that headspace, you know, and it is a big jump. It's a big leap, but I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I came back from living overseas, I didn't go back to my previous job, so I was an academic, and I always remember one day catching up, you know, only a short time back, catching up with my previous boss, and she just kept saying to me, Amanda, and I was working and doing all sorts of things, you know, as I still do to this day, but she was like, Amanda, when are you going to get a real job again? I don't understand. When are you going to get a real job? And like, it just reinforced as concretely as possible. I didn't want what she considered to be a real job. And because exactly what you say, once you've seen, you can't unsee how life could be. So
yeah, I was just going to say, I think that leads on to my last little comment I had was about what life, you know, people have these ideas of what life is, and they seem to want everyone to fit into their idea of what life is and not just let people find their own happiness and find their own life that they want to live. I mean, there's this whole idea that you get married, have kids, you know, buy your big house in the suburbs and all those kind of norms that others have. And then I get this all the time because I travel so much, and people are like, oh, they just think when are you going to stop traveling and do all these other things? I go, probably not.
Never.
and yeah, so it's and I think there was a comment I think Laura wrote in there was the loosen your grip on what you think life is. That was in the book, and that kind of resonates with, you shouldn't be afraid to go and try these things and actually enjoy it. Or probably will enjoy it, actually, I would say.
I mean, the crazy thing is, for me, you know, I wanted to write a book since I was in primary school. You know, I once heard this quote that you should do what you wanted to do when you were a kid. Before you got brainwashed into, you know, you can't do that. You've got to follow the standard path. I don't know what it was that scared me away from doing that. It just seemed maybe an impossible dream to do, and it's, you know, it's not an easy life. But I think if you're living your passion, you know, that is so much more important than getting the house in the suburbs and everything. Yeah,
it's not saying you can't do any of those things. I think it's just you've got to find what you don't have to have all these things, or you don't have to do what.
Yeah, it's about prioritising.
The majority of the people are doing. Yeah, and people always say that. And I, you know, it's the whole adage of, you know, people buy their new car every couple of years, and they go, how do you afford to travel all the time? And you go, well, how do you afford to buy a car every 2 or 3 years? And
I was just going to say, Justin, exactly that. On Instagram last year, my most, by far, my most, the post I posted with the biggest, you know, stats and reach and stuff was a quote which I said was, I have a small house and an old car, but lots of passport stamps. And, like, you know, that's how we do it. You know, I can live with the small house and the old car because I don't care. I would rather travel. And that's exactly the point.
And you know, I don't know. I've got a 9-to-5 job myself. I don't know if that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. But getting the balance in with the travel and doing things that you truly enjoy kind of all works at the moment. So, but there may
you've done
come
lots
a time
of amazing
where you go,
travel, Justin. So, obviously not the past 12 months, but usually.
Well, yes. And there may come a time where I get to my life and I go, I don't want to do this 9-to-5 job anymore. I just want to travel for a year. And I'm sure that's going to happen. I just don't know when I'm going to reach that point and just do it. But, it's interesting. And I mean, I have to say, during COVID, I did get a lot of people, and I don't know whether Laura or yourself got the same kind of comments. But I got a lot of people asking about how I was coping because I couldn't travel. And I still get that. And people are like, oh, how are you going? You're not able to travel. So obviously, hopefully people are like realising that not everyone, people find happiness in a lot of different ways. And
Justin, maybe people are thinking that we're like acting really crazy and horrible and they're figuring out it's because we can't travel.
Well,
maybe. No,
maybe.
I'm sure it's just because they're, they care about us.
I was happy so long as you could let me walk. That was okay.
Yeah.
I was actually in the middle of a 250-kilometre hike when the first lockdown happened. I got a little bit of cover on my phone, and I checked the emails, and it was a message from Parks Victoria saying, "You got to get back to your car and go home as soon as possible." And I'm like, okay, my car's 100 kilometres away, and the only way I was going to get there was by walking. So I still, I had that week of magic where I knew I was going, I was returning to a different world, but out there, it was just me and the koalas and the birds, and it really makes you appreciate just those simple pleasures.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple of questions come in that I want to get through. So, Pam has a straightforward one. Laura, just wondering if you've got another hike planned.
Well, look, I've got all the maps and the guidebook to the GR11 across the Pyrenees in between Spain and France, but you see, that didn't happen
Not this year.
I've actually I've got to be in my bonnet about doing a long paddle, because I do like paddling as well. But I do need to find a buddy for that. I actually do. Yeah, just for safety on water. You need to have a friend. So
I shouldn't give you ideas, but I know people paddle from, and there's a whole lot of islands, and they camp on them. I shouldn't give you ideas, though.
Yeah, where is this place you speak of?
No, so they paddle from, I think, Wilson's Promontory to Tasmania on a sea kayak, and there's and you go into Google Earth or something, you go, wow, there's actually all these islands along there. And so I think it's like a 7-day people actually do this. So anyway.
That sounds pretty hardcore, though.
That does sound hardcore.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know.
Crossing there sounds a bit
I met someone who'd done it. So, yeah. So, but they'd done a lot of things. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Some more ideas. Now, Jen says, I was so impressed by your change in mindset and how you decided to throw away your old life. Do you find you go back to your old ways sometimes and have to pull yourself to your new outlook?
Yes. I think the main thing, I still battle insecurity sometimes, particularly when I'm doing something new, like I'm about to write another book and it's a different kind of book, and I'm talking as though, in my head, I'm like, oh, can I do it? But I don't know what I'm doing. But I have to remind myself, like, you will find a way, you will make this happen. And, the other thing that we've already sort of touched on, the being frustrated about being, life in the city. The other day, I just had to remind myself, remember who you were when you came off that trail. These little frustrations, they're not worth the energy. Yeah. Sometimes I have to reread my own words and just remind myself, that headspace that I had at that time. And it's a good little reminder.
Yeah. Oh, fabulous that you have like a Bible of it so you can, remember. That's very handy. Now, Steve says very nicely, he says, thanks for your courage in doing what you do, being here now and sharing. And he's got a bunch of questions, but I'm just going to summarize a couple. So he basically says, imagine you're about to board a plane back to start the trail again tomorrow. So imagine no COVID, etc. So how would you feel about it, and what would you do differently? And do you think that it would change you even further?
I would be super excited. I would be thinking, yes, back into, back to my home. It feels kind of like a spiritual home for me. My only reservation, I think it would be different because, weather and the people you meet, it's always going to make it different. And my memory's rubbish anyway, so I'll probably forget half of it. And it will all feel new again. I think I had a very different experience. I finished the trail in 2014. I think there's a lot more people on the trail now, so that could really change the dynamic. Some of those huts in the South Island have only got 6 beds in them, and I don't know where people would sleep, when they're full, because say some of those huts in the Richmond Ranges and the Tararua, there is nowhere to pitch a tent outside. And if you're above the tree line and it's blowing a gale, I'd be interested to know how that's doing. But part of me would love to do it again and to just relive that euphoria, because it is euphoria of just walking and that's it. And New Zealand is stunning, so I would love to do it again. But there's always another trail somewhere, so.
I do agree. I'm hoping I've got a million trips to New Zealand planned. Fingers crossed I'll open a board sometime later this year.
Yeah, I have never been to New Zealand, which I know, but from Perth, it's actually really far to get to New Zealand, and much quicker I can get to Asia. So generally I've gone to Asia instead, because it's also quite expensive to fly to New Zealand from here. But that's what I'm thinking. Maybe there'll be a travel bubble, and it's, then it becomes the obvious choice because I can't go anywhere else. Not that I've always wanted to go to New Zealand, but I just, often the choices are, okay, I've got this length of time or this budget, and so I'll be in Asia instead, because from Perth that's just much quicker. But I definitely would love to get there. So
I think I had that you get that whole idea that it's easy. I had that whole idea that it's easy to do New Zealand when you're retired and you can just, like the whole caravanning around Australia idea. And then you actually get that. You actually go, oh, I forget how I ended up in there. I think I stopped over on the way to South America in Auckland, and then even Auckland had me hooked because there's some nice places not far out of Auckland you can go for a hike and just for the day. And
it is stunning.
I'm hooked. Yeah,
it's so stunning.
I'm hooked. I've done both islands, and I'll go back and do more of the both islands. So yeah.
I mean, obviously, when I walked it, I was just doing one linear line down the whole route. So I've gone back since and filled in the gaps around the place, and there is never a dull moment in New Zealand. It's all stunning.
No.
Yeah, and I think
it seems amazing. A lot of variety.
As friendly as
very much so.
Friendly people, lots of scenery. What more can we want?
Exactly. Whittaker's chocolate. It's all good.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was very envious when you mentioned a couple of times in your book that you could just basically consume lots and lots of chocolate and you would just walk it off immediately. I was like, I got to get out there and go hiking.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
A kilo and a half. No, what was it? Half a kilo a week. That's what I was eating. Half a kilo of chocolate a week.
Oh, love it. That's the life. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I'm just aware of the time. We better, as much as, actually, I did say beforehand that Justin and I can rabbit on forever, but we will wrap things up. So thank you so much, Laura. It has been fabulous to be able to chat to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
There's a bunch of other nice comments over there in the Facebook group, so we can go back and have a proper look through them later. But thank you, Justin, as well.
No worries.
Thank you.
As good as it normally is. Good fun.
Yes, always good fun, and extra good fun this time. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Thoughtful Travellers Book Club for this late 2020 book, early 2021 book. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for joining us to chat about Bewildered with Laura Waters. It's been awesome fun. And I will be announcing the next book very soon. I was telling Justin beforehand that I've got a short list. I just can't decide. So anyway, we'll be on to that soon, and we'll probably talk about that in March 2021. So thank you, Laura. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks very much.
See you soon.
No worries. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.